Hello, my name is Dr. David Edward Uwe Poon, founder of the Faces of Advocacy. We are not asking for open borders, we are just asking to be together. Here we are today with MP Lewis from Essex, and we are so grateful for his time. Today we'll be going through a number of issues when it comes to family reunification and what we can do to help families get together safely. So thank you so much for your time, MP Lewis. It means a lot to me.
Well, thank
Our
you very much, Dr. Poon. I certainly appreciate being here, and I think it's really necessary to have these conversations. I know it's necessary. I know that that families' voices need to be heard, and I'm very excited for the interview. So thank you very much again, Doctor.
David is fine, and thank you for your time. So, our first major question is the basic one. Why is family reunification important to Canadians and the people of Essex?
Yeah, fantastic question. So for those that aren't aware, David, Essex is only one riding away from touching the busiest international border in North America. And with that, not only for commerce, of course, but also for families. I can't tell you how many times I've spoke to, and or my staff have spoke to Canadians with loved ones right next door in Michigan. Like you can almost throw a rock and really hit Michigan from Windsor. And there's just countless amounts of stories of people literally crying, sobbing on the phone saying, I have not seen my loved one in in months. And I guess the one that's really near and dear to my heart, probably the greatest one for me, because I just recently, about 2 months and 1 week ago, became a grandfather for the first time.
Congratulations.
And I'm fortunate. Thank you so much. And I know I'm gloating a little bit here, but it's my first one, so it's kind of neat. But I bring that up because I'm able to actually see my grandson Levi. I can't tell you how many times grandparents have called me from my riding and said that it's been over 18 months. They have a grandchild in Michigan or somewhere in the States or overseas. They haven't even got to hold their grandchild for the very first time. And some of these people, unfortunately, are suffering from medical conditions such as cancer. So family reunification really, really hits home. It's something that's quite frankly filled up my inbox and my voicemail, but I'm glad that it has. I'm glad to be able to tell their stories and see what we can do to get people back home.
It means a great deal to hear the sympathetic voice because a lot of us have felt ignored. Now, some of our MPs haven't been maybe as active as family reunification, and I wanted you to take this time to explain to our group how you yourself have been helping your constituents reunite with their loved ones.
For sure. So I thanks for the question, because this is honestly my favorite story in my short tenure as member of parliament. First and foremost, I got to tell you, it's not about me. It's about my staff. I have the most amazing team. I think collectively, all my staff have some 44 or 46 years of experience in federal politics, working for other MPs, and they really bring something very unique, quite a gift to the table. And that gift is reaching out to other offices, be it our own offices, conservative offices, or across the table. Because at the end of the day, we must be bipartisan to get people back home. So, my favorite story is really a simple one, and it goes back to about 4 or 5 months before Christmas. And a woman from a town named Amherstburg in my riding had reached out to our office. I won't use names, of course. And her husband was in Michigan, and he had hip surgery, and obviously hip surgery, a long time for healing. And so she hadn't saw him in some 4 or 5 months. So my staff and myself as well, we reached out to various ministers' offices. And what I always give credit where credit's due. And there was a really good team member from the minister's office that was working incredibly close on this file. And the CBSA, bless them, bless their, but they get thrown so many different directions, so many different stories. They don't know which way is up sometimes. So long story short is on Christmas Eve, I was on the phone with the minister's office. My chief of staff was on the phone with the minister's office. We were writing letters. This is Christmas Eve in the afternoon. The end of the story goes like this: the greatest gift you could ever give somebody or receive. At 2:30 on Christmas Day, I got a phone call from the woman that lives in Amherstburg, and she was sitting on the couch crying, and sent a picture of her and her husband. So, when some folks may say politicians don't do anything, why do we pay them? Why do we need them? sometimes politicians get things done. And that's my favorite story because it's the truly, it's the epitome of family reunification, especially at Christmas. Sorry for the long-winded, but I'm a little, you can tell I get pretty fired up over this stuff.
That kind of passion, that kind of wonderful story, that's what people need to hear right now because things have gotten really, really challenging. There are issues still that exist, such as a 15-day minimum stay. And a lot of our members are wondering, it's a common sense solution for a fully vaccinated person to not need 15 days to stay. So could you help us understand why changes to these barriers take so long in government?
That's a fantastic question. If I had the answer, we wouldn't have the problem. I will tell you. I think my chief of staff has checked it out for me. I believe 18 times in the House of Commons or in statements, I have called upon the Minister of Public Safety and the Minister of Health to open up the borders, not only for family reunification, but also for businesses. And so, as I mentioned earlier on, our border being the busiest North American border, the busiest border, international border in North America, equally with family reunification, also it's about business. And people need to be considered as commerce. So every time we ship a part, we ship a car back and forth across the border, there needs to be a person that goes with that car. And so because of that, I don't know how to be a louder, stronger advocate for this. And why does it take so long? Unfortunately, there's plans. The government has their own plans. They have election plans and they have grandstanding plans. And at the end of the day, so many people, so many families and so many businesses are left behind. But all I can tell you is I know personally, our office has advocated immensely on this, and you know what, to some very good extent, we have got some good responses back from ministers, not usually during question period, but that's to be understood. It's frustrating. I know it's frustrating, but all is not lost just yet, David.
It gives us a lot of hope to hear that people are pressing forward. Now, you're sitting here doing an interview with us. Some of our members have written their MPs and they don't get a response or they get a robot response. How can we better get responses from people trying to access government?
For sure. Very, very fair question. And I'll be honest with you, I've been accused sometimes myself out of my own office of not getting back to people quick enough, but I'll be equally honest again. So at the peak, at the height of COVID-19, this is probably going to blow yourself and a lot of your members away. My office was receiving over 1,000 emails, phone calls, or social media requests per day, per day. And so that could be a lot of things with regard to form letters, which come into my office in droves across the country. That could be with regard to policy. Through my instruction to my staff, the first thing we always take care of course, is things such as family reunification, unemployment. So those people that don't have a check coming in, those are their first focuses. And then, of course, because we may get 400 or 500 or 700 um, um, form letters to one thing, we'll write one letter and send it back out. So when some folks call it robot, the truth of the matter is that's 700 individual letters that we still need to respond to. I'm a huge advocate of communication, communication, communication. Although it might take some time, and truthfully, some people slip through the cracks. We're not perfect, and Chris is certainly not perfect. I'm human, but if you're not trying, you're certainly not going to make a mistake. But what I would suggest, specifically to your question, is I'm a big believer in what you get in is what you put back out. So if somebody wants to just sign their name digitally on a piece of paper and send out a form letter to my office, well, you're not going to get a personal phone call or a personal letter back from me. If you handwrite something and you're from the riding of Essex, you will get a touch point back from me, from my office. It won't be a robot. So my suggestion is for your advocacy group, send personalized letters, because we get so much information, so many form letters in. I don't want to say they get lost in the shuffle, but when you got 1,000, there's a pretty good chance I'm reading a handwritten one before I'm going to read a digital one.
That makes a lot of sense. One of our own members had sent 100 handwritten letters to Minister Blair during the time. So I think that's a very good point. And it really helps to know that at least a person is the one responding with a form response, because a lot of us had felt that it was a robot. So this really helps give a lot of context. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Now, moving forward, there will be a lot of talk about the border. And how are we going to make sure that families are a priority to the government moving forward?
That's a That's a really interesting question, I would suggest. And I think it's more than one advocacy group. I think it really starts at the grassroots. I think it's we've been through, guess what, we're pushing 20 months now of COVID or something along those lines, and people, quite frankly, have lost a lot of hope. They've lost a lot of trust. They're frustrated, they're disappointed, they're worried, they're concerned for the future. I know I'm concerned for my three children, let alone my little grandson Levi. How is he going to be able to afford a house? And if you can afford a house, how do you start a family with the high cost of groceries and diapers, and let alone have a car? And if you can afford a car and the insurance, is there any money left at the end of the day to do a sport or to do an arts or something culturally? So I really think that we as Canada, as Canadians, need to get back to basics, back to the grassroots, back to responsible spending. And that doesn't mean austerity. That doesn't mean cut every last program, although the Liberals and the NDP would like to say that. What it does mean is don't throw good money at bad. And B, if you want to talk austerity, we'll talk austerity all day long. We're going to cut the We Charity, $100 billion. There's a lot of programs that are quite frankly, quite frankly, scandalous. And those are the kind of things that we'll cut. But to get right to your point, I'm honestly looking forward to the election. I love talking to people. Nobody's more frustrated than Chris is, because in my short time as an MP, I was looking forward to attending all these events, getting to meet these amazing folks of Essex. And now with an election looming, well, you know what? I get to go to the doors at least and talk to people there. So my point is, we as candidates need to get out to the grassroots, get to the base, get to the people, and listen to their ideas, listen to their concerns, not think that we're smarter than everyone else. Truthfully, all the answers are there. Canadians are very, very intelligent people, and the constituent knows best. So as long as we're carrying their voice forward, I think that's the best way that we get the voices for the majority of families moving forward, sir.
It means a lot to hear about how you feel that the Canadians are reasonable people. A lot of the time, family unification has been bundled with, oh, these guys just want to go party with their friend in Banff or something, and those are very hard things to hear. And in the event of a possible election, it's very important that Canadians feel heard, and hearing things like this really helps. I suppose then this brings us to the last but most important question is, what message do you have for Canadians who are feeling disenfranchised and forgotten by the government over the past 16 months?
There's one message, there's honestly one word, and we really can't say it enough as a country. The word is hope, because without it, doctor, without it, we have nothing. We have zero, literally nothing. And I guess my message is, there's a reason that I still jump out of bed in each and every morning, real early. I'm an early riser, and there's a reason there's a hop to my step, because I believe 100% that Canada still remains the greatest country of this nation, hands down. Has it went a little bit astray? Are we a little bit sideways under some of the leadership? Yeah, it has. It has. And I'll use the word little just purely out of respect. And again, no government's perfect. But without the people remaining engaged in government to at least some extent, and the last thing they want right now is an election, quite frankly. It's the last thing that people want. What they want is spend time with their families, get back to normalcy, get back to work, hug their grandchildren. That's what they want. Unfortunately, there's probably going to be an election. But my point is, it's about hope, and not, when you speak about being disenfranchised, what will ultimately destroy this country is if Canadians don't get to the polls, if Canadians, quite frankly, are so upset and they don't care because they don't trust. And again, we've come way too far as a country. We've come too far as society to not right the wrongs, such as the indigenous issues with residential schools, with clean water, those types of things. The list goes on and on and on. And nobody's got a magic wand or enough money to change it all overnight. But as I mentioned previously, Canadians are very, very, very intelligent people, and we have great business leaders. We've got great religious leaders. We've got just so much leadership out there. I mean, even hockey coaches, as silly as it sounds, and baseball coaches, these are all people that have great ideas, great thoughts. And it's through the conversation, and the conversation only, that we will now turn the page and make Canada that much stronger. So personally, I'm excited. To your point one last time, I'm excited for the future. If I wasn't, I'd get the heck out of my own way and let somebody else do it. But I'm excited because I know it can be better. But I'm excited because I still have hope. And I would challenge families and Canadians across the country to join me in that message of hope. And really have hard, honest communication with your MP, or move to Essex, and I'd love to talk to you here. Hopefully, I'll answer your question, David.
It does, and it gives a lot of hope for people. We've been saying that the Face of Advocacy wants to build hope for a post-COVID future, and this is something that we really need to hear. Thank you to MP Lewis of Essex, and I want to address anyone watching this. If you're feeling lost, alone, and forgotten, please join us in the campaign at facesofatvocacy.com. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. But we want to work together and press forward in a way that will make sure that family reunification is a high priority now and coming with the possible election. We're not asking for open borders. We're just asking to be together. And say goodbye in 3, 2,